Hello and welcome to part 4 of our read aloud of the Stupendous Dodgeball Fiasco. Get it on camera there. When we left off, Philip had quite an experience when we read through part 3. He accidentally dumped his tray full of food all over BB Tyson. He got hurt during a dodgeball game. And then Coach found out about his circus past, which he then relayed to BB, who was then told all of her friends, and now it seems like everyone in the school knows. Philip, in a panic after being called out for being a circus boy by BB and her friends, was just so mortified and embarrassed, he literally ran out of school. Literally ran away from school. So we're going to have to see what happens now as we begin part 4. Once, the Windy Van Houten Circus was low on cash and had to let some employees go. When the tightrope walker was told he had lost his job, he asked the owner how he was supposed to get home to his family. The owner pointed to a string of telephone poles and said, "You could walk home." The whole way from school to the courthouse, Philip thought about going back home to his family. He had to get away from Hardingtown. "What are you doing here?" asked Aunt Viola, checking the courthouse clock. "Are you sick?" She removed a thin latex glove from the pouch on her security belt, snapped it on, and felt his forehead. Philip pulled away. He used his shirt sleeve to wipe his eyes, and it left a dirty streak across his face. "I don't want to live in Hardingtown anymore," Philip said. "You're just having a bad day, that's all. It's hard to adjust to a new school," she said. "I'll never fit in here." "Give it more time, Philip." "No. I want to see my parents. Call my mom and tell her I want to come home." "I can't do that, Philip," Aunt Viola said. Philip felt as if an elephant had fallen on him. "Why not?" he asked. "Because I promised your mother I would take care of you. You've only been here a week. You haven't even given it a chance." "I want to go home." "This is your home for now," said Aunt Viola. "You're going to have to make the best of it." Tears trickled down Philip's face. Aunt Viola removed a pack of facial tissues from a zippered compartment in her security jacket. "You can wear a rut in your face from crying too much," she said. She handed him a tissue to blot his tears away. "You should wash up before you go back to school." In the restroom, the cold water stung Philip's exhausted eyes. Aunt Viola didn't understand. It wasn't just the circus teasing, there was the dodgeball problem too. Philip considered his options. Option 1. Go back to school and give BB another chance to hit him so hard his entire body would explode with such force that Mr. Vanderberg, the custodian, would take a week to mop him off the gymnasium walls. Option 2. Go back to Aunt Viola's house, jump into bed, hide under the covers, and refuse to go to school, after which a truant officer would lock him in jail where he would be forced to eat cockroaches to survive. Option 3. Run away. It was time to pack his bags. Philip heard his stomach rumble, so before he left, he decided to go to the snack bar for something to eat. The snack bar was crowded and smelled like the sauerkraut bagel special. Philip sat at a table to wait the line out. The salt and pepper shakers on the table seemed to stare at him. He picked them up and thought about the secret signal. Even if he told Sam what had happened, though, there was nothing that a blind man could do. There was nothing anyone could do. Philip was all alone. He put the shakers down, grabbed a bag of potato chips and a root beer, and got in line. "Good morning," said Sam. "Morning," Philip answered. He made his voice sound lower, like a man's voice. "No school today, Philip?" Sam asked. "I'm on a field trip," he answered, surprised Sam recognized him. "By yourself?" "The other kids are downstairs," Philip lied. "I see," said Sam. "No, you don't," thought Philip bitterly. "What are you having today?" Sam asked. Philip always ordered a bag of chips and a root beer. "The usual," he said. Sam pressed his cash register, and the cash register said 50 cents. Philip noticed a box full of candy bars next to the cash register. "Your total," the cash register said, "is $1. He handed Sam $1 while he slipped a candy bar into his pocket. He scooped up the chips and root beer and went to his usual table. Philip watched Sam work with the young woman behind the counter and ring up customer orders. A sheriff came in. While he waited for his food, he removed his hat. Sam touched a spot on the sheriff's head. Philip felt the stolen candy bar burning in his pocket. He wondered if they made prisoner uniforms in junior sizes. Philip was so caught up in his thoughts, he didn't notice Sam walk over. "You forgot your ketchup," he said, plunking down a half-used bottle. "Thanks," said Philip. Sam sat down. "Did you see the sheriff?" he asked. Philip nodded. Yes." "Got a lump on his head, courtesy of some bank robber." Says the thief got his start in crime stealing candy bars. A chip seemed to stick in Philip's throat. He took a hard swig of root beer. Anything you want to talk about? Philip took the candy bar out of his pocket and slid it across the table into Sam's hand. How'd you know? I may be blind, but I'm not stupid. Philip made a puzzled sound. Plus, Beverly saw you do it, Sam said. Philip glanced over at the counter. Beverly, the young woman who worked with Sam, was scraping mayonnaise out of a jar. If Philip had been as flexible as Angela the Amazing Acrobat, he would have kicked himself. Why was he so stupid? He hung his head and rubbed his sore eyes. Are you going to turn me in? Which table is the sheriff at? Sam replied. When a trapeze artist falls into the net at the end of a show, he must land flat on his back in the center of the net, otherwise he can hurt himself. Philip felt like he was falling from a trapeze so high he couldn't even see if there was a net. Please don't turn me in, he begged Sam. I'll make it up, I promise. After a long silence, Sam said, Okay, how about you answer some questions then? About what? About why you ditched school today. Ditched? Cut class, played hooky, went truant, explained Sam. What's the reason you aren't in school right now? I don't know, said Philip. You wouldn't be running away from home by any chance? Maybe. Let me guess. No one understands you. You feel different. Are you making fun of me? No, it's natural for a new kid to feel he doesn't fit in. You don't understand. I'm not just a new kid. I really am different. Okay, I'll bite. How are you so different? Before I came to Hardingtown, my life was a 2-ring circus. You mean a 3-ring circus, said Sam. The expression is, my life is like a 3-ring circus. No, I really mean it. 2 rings. The Wendy Van Houten circus is a 2-ring circus. For real? For real, said Philip. My parents are circus people. Awesome, said Sam. Philip leaned in and raised his voice a measured notch. You don't understand. My dad is Leo Laugh-A-Lot. He wears a rainbow wig and a flower pin that squirts water. His signature gag is trying to stuff more than 6 clowns into a telephone booth, but they never fit. That's pretty funny, said Sam. No, it's not. Know what else? My mom is the fat lady. Not a fat lady, the fat lady. She wears a polka dot dress as big as a tent. Her neck is thicker than my waist. Do you know how much you have to weigh to be the fat lady at the circus? How much? Said Sam, waiting for the punchline. It's not a joke. They call our family the Stupendous Stanislaus, he concluded miserably. Wait a minute. Let me get this straight. Instead of working boring jobs like my parents, your folks are in show business. Your dad laughs and plays all day, and your mom gets paid for sitting and eating goodies? Sam raised his shoulders and spread his arms out. And you don't think that's cool? If coming from a circus family is so cool, why did BB's friends laugh at me? Because they clearly don't know what cool is, said Sam. But that's not the worst of it. What is? Dodgeball. Dodgeball is the worst. You mean the game? It's not a game, it's target practice for BB Tyson. The same BB whose friends laughed at you. She's the reason I got this, Philip said, and he held up his bandaged wrist. Got what? Asked Sam. I sprained my wrist yesterday, playing dodgeball. BB hit Sean O'Malley, who fell on me, and I sprained my wrist. Then you don't have to worry about dodgeball. If you have a sprained wrist, you won't be able to play for 2 or 3 weeks. Oh, I never thought of that. Sure. Just have the school nurse write you a note. What do I do after that? Let's worry about that in 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, eventually Philip agreed. He finished his bag of chips and crinkled the bag. Here, give it to me. Watch this. Sam shot the crumpled paper into a corner where it landed dead center into an open trash can. Sam, said Philip, I really am sorry about the candy bar. I know, said Sam. He went back to the counter where a man with an expandable folder was waiting on a dodgeball burger. The next gym class, Philip handed Coach the nurse's note and climbed to the top of the bleachers. Made to watch the other kids get hit, he wasn't alone for long. A thin girl with a red face huffed her way up next to him. Slowly they were joined by others, still feeling the sting of the ball. On the floor, 2 of the tougher kids were battling like they were firing grenades. One of them raced from a screamer smack into the wall. Coach stopped the game to make sure the boy was still alive, then had Sean O'Malley help him to the bleachers. You should go to the nurse's office, Philip said. Shut up, said the tough guy, still teetering as he sat. It's just not right, Philip said. What's not? Asked Sean. Kids shouldn't be allowed to purposely hit each other. Somebody ought to do something. Ugh, that'll be the day, said Sean. Yeah, dream on, said the girl with the red face. You'll get used to it, a boy holding his side explained to Philip. It's really all you can do. Philip didn't want to get used to it. It's not fair, he thought. Whenever something happened in the circus that seemed unfair, he would talk about it with his mom. If it was important enough, she would discuss it with the other circus performers. Then they would hold a circus meeting to debate and vote on a solution. If the vote was a tie, the governor of the circus would make the decision. Whether it was the wrong kind of net for a dangerous stunt or a bigger lion picking on a smaller one, at least somebody tried to resolve the problem. Unfairness had always made Philip sick to his stomach. At dinner that night, he had no appetite. By lunch the next day, he still wasn't hungry. Philip went to clean his locker. 2 boys saw him and raced over. Hey, did you hear what happened? Asked one. A couple of stampeding elephants escaped from a traveling circus, explained the other. Philip dropped his math book. Stampeding elephants could crush cars, knock down buildings, trample people, not to mention the poop problems. Yeah, said the first kid. The cops found them in the public swimming pool with their trunks down. The boys laughed. Get it? Elephant trunks? Swim trunks? Their trunks down? Said one. Ah, should have seen the expression on your face, said the other. Philip watched them gallop down the hallway, punching each other's arms until they disappeared around a corner. He picked up his math book and returned it to his locker, wondering if he still even wanted to be a regular boy. Then he grabbed a bunch of papers from the top shelf and began sorting. Hey, what grade are you in? Asked the girl who had crept up behind him. It was Carmen, a tan-skinned, dark-haired 6th grader wearing stylish black jeans and a glittery shirt. She was one of BB's friends. Why was she talking to him? I'm in 6th, he answered. Good, then you can sign this, she told him, holding out a paper on a clipboard and a strawberry-scented pen. What is it? He asked. A petition. What's a petition? How can you not know what a petition is? What was your job in the circus? Court jester? No, court jesters are medieval entertainers. Whatever, she said, flipping back her thick, wavy locks. Look, do you want ice cream in the cafeteria or not? I guess. Then sign this. Philip took the clipboard and began to read. It said, We, the undersigned members of the student body of the Hardingtown Middle School, hereby petition the school to serve ice cream in the cafeteria. The form was typed except the part about serving ice cream, which was written by hand. Underneath, it was line after line of student signatures. You mean if I sign this, the school will start serving ice cream? Ugh, don't be a moron, the girl said, taking the signed paper back from him. I need to collect 100 signatures before I can even turn it into the office for consideration. Philip thought about kids sitting in the cafeteria licking double-dipped ice cream cones, all because of the petition he signed. After school at the courthouse, he told Sam about it. Can anyone petition to change anything at the school? Asked Sam. I think so, said Philip. What about dodgeball? You can't stop dodgeball with a piece of paper. Maybe not stop it completely, Sam said. But you could petition for a second sport option for kids who don't like dodgeball. I don't know, said Philip. Hadn't he already stirred up enough trouble? Wasn't it better to keep quiet if you just wanted to fit in? I'll bet plenty of kids dislike playing dodgeball as much as you, said Sam. It would mean a lot to them. Philip knew scads of kids who didn't like dodgeball. The bleachers were full of them at the game's end. It would feel great if he could do something to help those kids. But why me? Asked Philip. Don't ask yourself why it should be you. Ask yourself why it shouldn't, said Sam. Philip thought about it. If Carmen could petition about ice cream, why couldn't he petition about dodgeball? Then he remembered why. Philip could see BB and her gang closing in on him with their dodgeballs cocked and ready to fire. BB Tyson will kill me if she finds out I'm petitioning against her favorite sport. You don't know that, do you? Philip played with the pull tab on his soda pop can. Know what? He asked. You don't know. There's a story they tell in Hardingtown, said Sam. An old but true story about an overweight girl who was lonely and wanted to make friends. Sam settled back in his chair and crossed his arms. Philip leaned in to listen. She wanted to try out for the dodgeball team, Sam continued. but she was overweight. She would have been an easy target. So instead, she tried out for the dodgeball cheerleading squad. At first, they laughed at her because she was too fat, but she was so incredibly strong, she could easily toss the lighter cheerleaders up into the air. Philip could see a picture in his mind of thin young girls sailing through the air in skirts and tights. It reminded him a bit of the circus. They made her a base, Sam went on. That's the person on the bottom who holds the other cheerleaders up. Did she make friends? Asked Philip. Some, said Sam. But there was this other kid, Stinky. He was the captain of the school dodgeball team, the Hardingtown Hedgehogs. He liked to embarrass her in front of the other kids. What does this have to do with the petition idea? Asked Philip. Just hear me out. On the day of the regional high school championship, Stinky was having a bad game. The Hedgehogs had lost one of their best players. The cheerleaders began doing a special routine to cheer him up. They built a pyramid so high, the girl on top looked like she could touch the ceiling. The base was holding it practically by herself. Nobody knew what came over Stinky next. 1 minute, he was standing there holding a dodgeball. The next minute, he was lobbing it at the base of the pyramid. What happened? Philip asked. It collapsed. The cheerleaders came crashing down. Fortunately for them, the Hedgehog team was directly below to help break their fall. Oh, not so fortunate for the Hedgehogs, Philip said. That's right. Put the whole team right out of commission. They had to forfeit the game. Ended in second place. It was the worst fiasco in Hardingtown dodgeball history. That's awful, said Philip. Sam nodded his head slowly. It wasn't her fault, Sam said, but they blamed the base cheerleader anyway. 100 people must have seen Stinky throw that ball, but none of them had the nerve to speak up against him. That's just how it is with bullies. Philip could feel the punch as the ball slammed into the base cheerleader. He could almost hear the crowd shouting at her, taste her salty tears as they slipped down her flushed cheeks onto her trembling lips. Look, you aren't the first kid in Hardingtown to get picked on by a dodgeball bully. But if you start a petition, you'll be the first kid around here to do something about it. Philip nodded. Sam was right. He had to try to help the other dodgeball targets. If enough kids signed the petition, they wouldn't have to worry about dodgeball anymore. I'll get 100 signatures, same as the ice cream petition, said Philip. Figure out who the biggest dodgeball targets are. Talk to them first. The more signatures you get, the more people will sign. People like to follow the leader. Sam stood and offered Philip his hand. Philip shook it. It felt good to have a plan. The next day, Philip quickly realized his first signature would be the hardest. After considering a half a dozen kids, he decided to ask Sean O'Malley since they sort of had a connection already. Philip reasoned with Sean as Sam had told him to. Since dodgeball is won by eliminating as many people as possible, the majority are losers. If all the losers get together, we can make them offer us an alternative sport. I'll think about it, said Sean. Please, Philip begged. I need your help. Why should I get involved? Sean asked. Because if you sign the petition, Philip said, trying to find a way to appeal to the big boy, I'll give you my lunch. It worked. He had his first signature. Philip looked around. Who would sign next? He saw Carmen. He went over to her lunch table and stood next to her, but she acted like she didn't see him. When she finally stood up to put her tray away, he made his move. What do you want? She said. Will you sign my petition? He asked, presenting it. You're in my way. It's to make dodgeball optional. Who died and put you in charge? I'm not trying to be in charge. I'm only trying to help. Why would I want to sign your petition? I signed yours. Mine was important. This is important. There are other sports we could play where kids wouldn't get hurt. She looked at him for a moment with a serious expression, as if she were thinking it over. Let me see the petition. Philip held his breath. If she signed, surely her friends would too. Carmen took the petition and ran her finger down the page. See, she said. What? I can't sign this. Why not? It hasn't been approved by the student council yet. The what? The students we elected to represent us. Oh, the student council, said Philip. You can't circulate a petition until the student council clears it. You need a seal in this space right down here. Philip saw the empty space at the bottom of the form. How do I get the student council to approve it? Look, see that girl in the green sweater? She pointed to a water fountain where a group of kids were crowded. Philip could see a piece of the green sweater near the front of the line. She's president of the student council. Go ask her. Philip made his way over to the girl. She was still drinking. Excuse me, he said. The girl stopped and looked up at him. It was Bibi Tyson. And that's where we're going to pause today. So Philip nearly went through with running away from home, but after talking with Sam, he convinced him to stick it out and, had some good advice there. I mean, his dad gets to goof around all day and has made a career out of it. His mom just gets to eat delicious food all day and has made a career out of it. That's not a bad deal if you can get it. And so Philip's going to give it another shot. And then after hearing about this petition idea, he's thinking, all right, based on Sam's advice, maybe I could petition for an alternative sport to dodgeball. Not to get rid of dodgeball completely, just offer an alternative for people that don't necessarily want to play that sport. And the idea of a petition, for those of you that haven't gotten to this point in your social studies classes, is something that is guaranteed in the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. It was the first of 10 amendments that make up the Bill of Rights that were added shortly after the Constitution was adopted. The Constitution, if I'm remembering my social studies correctly, was officially ratified in 1787, and the Bill of Rights was officially ratified just a few years later in 1791. The First Amendment guarantees 5 different freedoms that the government can't take away. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of press, freedom to assemble, and the last, the freedom to petition. And so out and about in the world, a petition is a real idea that you could use if you want to affect change. If there's something that you think is unfair, like Philip thinks with dodgeball, or if there's something that you want to change or make better, a petition, and you gather signatures of other people that agree with it, is a great way to let local or state leaders know that this is something that you're passionate about and something that you're concerned about. Now, a petition doesn't guarantee anything. Even if Carmen gathered 1,000 signatures for ice cream in the cafeteria doesn't have to offer it. It doesn't force them to. But it's a great way to let people in charge know this is something that we want you to know that we're concerned about, or something that we want you to know that we're interested in. So, a little social studies lesson with today's reading. Hopefully you'll join us back for part 5 of the Stupendous Dodgeball Fiasco. Bye.